Hi everyone. I'm actually speaking from high up on a ridge in Sedona. It's windy, so I don't know how much of this is gonna get recorded or not. I want to make a video to add to the one that's already on week 2, and so this video will have some sort of extra thoughts over and above, relevant to both religion and to Hinduism. And I wanted to first talk about the word religion. So our course is titled Religion, Spirituality and the Transpersonal. And the religion part of it could easily be regarded pejoratively, because many of us have a negative view of religion and what religion means because of what religion has become to mean in our modern world. And I would like to spend a few minutes, at least in this video, trying to clear religion's name. That's what I mean. So, first of all, what is the derivation of the word religion? Where does the word religion, what did it originally mean, the word religion? And if you go into the etymology of religion, you see that the first place the trail goes is to a Latin word, religio. And religio originally meant a kind of personal trait that a person might have. It referred to a virtue that someone might have, and that virtue consisted of a kind of pious attitude, a worshipful attitude, a reverential attitude towards the things of this world and towards life in general. And so that, the characteristic was called religio. So it was a personal characteristic. It did not have anything to do with doctrine or creeds or dogma or practices or ways you had to be originally. And so and this is up until the late Middle Ages. The word religion, well, it didn't exist. Religio had this connotation. But then it gets even more interesting if you delve further back in time, and then it gets a little bit more murky and people don't know exactly where to go. But one of the places a lot of people went, including Joseph Campbell, was to a word that was again, I think, another Latin word that meant to bind. And so it's I think it's legia, and then if you put re in front of it, re-legia, then it is to re-bind. So, and the connotation is that it's something that is joining things that have been broken asunder. Okay, so there's a lot to suggest that the original word religion meant to join things that had originally been one but had been broken asunder, to bring back together, to reconnect. And it's very interesting given the week that we're in, because we'll be studying some of the philosophy and texts of yoga. And you all probably know that the word yoga is translated as meaning to yoke, or to yoke together, to bind together. And so it turns out that the word yoga and religion may have originally meant exactly the same thing. And so that raises this possibility that I'm going to throw at you, that we could rather than talk about the religion of Christianity, we could be talking about the yoga of Christianity, the yoga of Islam, the yoga of Judaism. Okay, and it would have, at least in the past, have meant the same thing. So I'm wondering if we can sort of shift our perspective or our judgment about religion, at least in its original context, its original sense and meaning, and not what it's come to mean today, which does tend to refer to doctrines, creeds, and this kind of interpretation of religion really came along with the changes that occurred in the Reformation, the Protestant Reformation, so late Middle Ages, and so they're fairly recent actually. And then the other thing about religion is that until roughly the 18th century, there wasn't a concept of world religions. People didn't self-identify as belonging to this or that religion globally. That is something that has been imposed by the West. It's not like I'm a Buddhist, I'm a Hindu, I'm a Muslim. People didn't. That conception didn't exist, and so we have sort of in recent centuries, the last 2 or 3, have sort of reified this idea of these concrete things that we call religion, and that prior to this, those ideas didn't really exist, and so we've created something that we tend to do in the West, along with the sort of modern mode of thinking has come along this view of religion, which has put religion in a category that many of us are not happy with, and hence it sets up this dichotomy between science and spirituality, for example. Okay, so that's the part on religion, and I'm going to stop now.
Okay. Back in a more less wild environment here, to finish off this video, I wanted to add to what I said up on the ridge there by talking about the Vedas. So we've got this. So in Hinduism, really, most Hindus, I would say, think or imagine or believe that their tradition has grown out of this ground, this fertile ground of the Vedas. And the Vedas are a collection of texts written, and the dates of when they were written are disputed, but 1500 BC to 2500 BC, something like that. They're really the oldest Indo-European texts in existence. And one of the things that makes the age uncertain is that they were definitely a part of an oral tradition at first, a very sort of kind of precise and disciplined kind of oral tradition. And so, who knows the full lineage, how long these beliefs, these aspects of these texts were passed on. It's very hard to know, I think, and hence the imprecise nature of that date. But regardless, they're very old, and they're also, when you try and read them, they're very strange, and we'll talk more about that as we go, because it's definitely hard for us to appreciate in translation these texts, and you don't have any to read, so you don't get an idea. But very much of them, especially in the sort of more well-known Rig Veda, is the texts are full of kind of like hymns of praise. It's poetic, meant to be sung. Two aspects of nature and divinity within aspects of nature, I would say. And so there's a tremendous sense in reading them of a deep kind of appreciation of this world, but also of something seen that is seen through this world. And so first of all, the word Veda can be used as a noun or a verb. So as a noun, it really means knowledge, a kind of knowledge. So Veda is knowledge. But I would say not knowledge in the sense that we usually think of it. Knowledge more in the sense of gnosis, how we might use that word gnosis. So I would characterize it as a kind of knowing, or a knowing coming from a different place, a knowledge coming from a different place in us. As a verb, Veda means to see, to perceive, to see. So I would say, one could say that the Vedas contain a kind of knowledge, a kind of perception that leads to a certain kind of knowledge and a certain kind of knowing. And what is that knowing? It's like, okay, the $64,000 question. And so along with many other things that we study, so first of all, the word mysticism is from the same root as the word mystery, right? And in its origin, it meant something that was hidden. So mysticism is the study of something that is apparently hidden. And it's, in a sense, it's the revealing of something that is hidden. And I would say the same is true here in the Vedas, is in the sense that, and trying to relate this back to the concepts of yoga and religion that we talked about earlier, as binding something together, rebinding something together has been separated, broken apart, reconnecting. And so in the Vedas, I think is contained a view of the universe, of existence, that is really based on a kind of cosmic order. And interestingly enough, that word cosmos is a Greek word that implies a universal order. And when I say order, I don't mean order just in the physical world, the motion of the planets and stars and everything, but also in the inner world. There was a certain kind of perception, a certain kind of seeing that could see through this world, this apparently chaotic, incomprehensible world, but could see through it to a kind of divine order. And so the object of mysticism is the revealing or the perception of this divine order. And this is really the goal of the Vedas. It's these songs, these hymns, and all the other aspects, practices, sacrifices, meditations, mantras, are all oriented towards the perception of this hidden order, this hidden order, to see it, not only just to see it, to appreciate it. And in some ways with the Vedas, I get this sense that when you sort of sing praise to these elements of nature like the sun, our Western view of these are just primitive people worshipping aspects of nature because they don't understand them. They don't understand the sun is just a ball of gas. Well, I say these people have more understanding than we do, and it's actually the reverse. And so this because something is perceived, the perception of elements of nature like the sun is seeing in that this divine order. And that taking this sort of attitude of sort of praise and appreciation is the thing that kind of helps reveal that divine order. And then many of the other practices included in the Vedas. And then the ability to sort of perceive it within, the divine order within, via meditation and mantra practice and that kind of thing. So hidden within this world is our timeless divine forces. This is the idea. So within our ephemeral and chaotic world is hidden a kind of divine order. And the mystical path is to reveal it. And then that is directly what is referred to in the Vedas. And so we don't perceive this typically. And so this gives us a sense of when we talk about religion and yoga as reuniting or rebinding two things, something happens to us coming into this world where we've lost that sense of the divine order. We don't have that perception, divine order within and without, our belonging as part of it, even our agency as part of that divine order. We've lost our sense of that. The sort of chaotic aspect of this world tends to win. So this gives us a sense of what is kind of broken asunder that needs to be rejoined. At least this is my interpretation at this point. So the question is, and I have a book. If any of you are interested in delving into the Vedas more, and also to some extent the Upanishads, there's a book here that I would recommend. It's called The Artful Universe by this guy William Mahoney, and it's a beautiful introduction to the Vedas. In fact, I've just been rereading the introductory chapters of this, and it's kind of blowing my mind. And so it's really a great prep. I would say would be a great preparation for any study of mysticism in itself. But and his interpretation of the Vedas is very beautiful, and it's, I find the Vedas, it's hard to make these interpretations, but I think he's come up with a very convincing kind of interpretation. And his interpretation is that one of the sort of central beliefs of the Vedas is that the world is created out of mind, and more specifically, this world is created out of imagination. And in this particular sense, we're talking about the imagination of the gods. So this relates to the term Maya, right? Which we'll come across, I'm sure, in our readings. So the idea that the world is kind of illusory that's actually probably a misunderstanding on our part, that the world is illusion. You could probably more understand it by saying something like, when we use this phrase, "Oh, it's just your imagination," it's a little bit like that. "Oh, it's just the imagination of the gods," right? It's a little bit dismissive. But in the Vedas, people didn't feel that way. The imagination was regarded as something extremely powerful. In a sense, it was the power of the gods, the ability to imagine this world into existence. So this world that we experience is literally the imagination of the gods. It's a created world. It's actually not really wrong to say that it's a work of art. And like so many works of art, this world, a work of art is characterized by this sense of wholeness about it. All the parts of a work of art somehow fit together to create this wholeness. And that's how the ancient sages saw the world in the Vedas, that it was actually a whole. All of the parts, everything was interrelated, everything fit together to create this whole that was like a divine work of art. I love this perspective on the world. It's a beautiful perspective to have. And this, one of the things that brings this world together, that creates this whole, is this kind of divine cosmic order that in the Vedas they call Rita. So it's R-T-A. And this Rita represents, later probably became evolved into the word Dharma. But it's very much like, I would say, the concept of the Tao in Taoism, which we'll see later in the course, or cosmos in the ancient Greece, that idea that there's a divine order, and this was central to their view. But that looking inside and outside, what they perceived is that we had some of that capacity that the gods have. In other words, we had the ability to imagine. We had imagination. We could create. And so that there was a relationship, a way to bridge the gap between the divine and the sort of mundane world was via imagination, via using that ability that the gods used to create this world. And how is that imagination used? It's used in all of these hymns of praise, the poetry that's created to appreciate this world of divine order, this world of imagination. They're using their imagination. And the same with contemplative practices as well. It's to really bridge this gap between worlds. So and that would give the sage, so the poet, the priest, the contemplative practitioner in the Vedas, it would give them to sort of participate, an ability to participate in the divine artistry. In other words, you become on board with the artist or artists of this world. You're participating in the divine artistry. And this probably can relate us to the course some of us just went through in the fall on the origin and destiny of human consciousness. And this is sort of participating in a kind of evolution of this world. So what I would say is that what the Vedas express is a kind of ascetic appreciation of this world. And the world is itself ascetic. And in our own sensitivity to aesthetic, our own ability to create and imagine, we can appreciate this world, and not only that, be kind of on board with its creation. So, imagination, of course, is one of the ways in which the formless gets into the world of form, right? It's that things are conceived often internally first in the realm of imagination, and then those can be brought forth into actually concrete reality, and things that one imagines can be brought forth. So it's easy to see why one would think that's the power of the gods, and that's how this world was created. So I think I wanted to just give you a kind of sense of the Vedas, because everything, I think, ultimately that follows in Hinduism grows out of that fertile ground. The Upanishads next, the whole field of Vedanta, Bhagavad Gita comes out of it, and much more. And even, I suppose, many philosophies like as those contained in the Yoga Sutra. So we're going to the origins, and what I find is that when you go to the origins, there's a lot of life there, but it's hard to tease out. But there's a lot of life there in the origins of these traditions, rather than in what's become reified more over time and concretized over time. This video will go along with one that's below it from a previous year, and you'll be going into your practice starting on Sunday, doing it every day this week, and then reporting in on that later. I've been really enjoying your discussion posts. Please, in discussion posts in this course, feel free to bring in your own experience. Okay, it's very important for you to bring in your own experience and not to talk solely in the abstract. And so basically the abstract is great, theory is great, but we need to bring the worlds of theory and experience together to create a whole, and to really connect with the material, I would say. So whatever your experience may be, now you may be reading material in this course that you hate, you're having a big reaction to it. Okay, let's hear about it. Or you love, let's hear about it. And why? How does that relate to your life? We need to go into these aspects. Because, obviously one of the things we find is that we have opinions that are not questioned. And all opinions need to be questioned, ultimately, to understand ourselves better, but also to communicate. It's like we're not interested in merely expressing opinions. We're interested in understanding. Okay, excited to be working with all of you, and this is going to be a long video, and I'm sorry about that, but the best I could do. And I hope this sort of gave you a taste of the Vedas. A difficult thing to do. In a way, I was trying to condense the insights I've gained from this book into this short video, and that's challenging to do. Okay, so I'll be making more videos, obviously, and talking to you online. All right, bye.